What's going on, everybody? Peter here from Facts Not Included. Today is a Tangent Friday, so if you are listening to this, you're likely listening to it around when it came out at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday. I appreciate you guys actually clicking on the episode and checking it out. Before we get into the episode, I would like to let you guys all know that just in case, if you are not following us on Facebook or Twitter, please make sure you do so. All the news related to the podcast until things that we like to share all go through those two accounts. So make sure you are following Facts Not Included on Facebook and Twitter. If you are trying to get episodes, you're not sure where exactly is the best places to listen, well, make sure you are listening to us on either on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, Podbean, wherever else you get your podcast. Don't forget we also have YouTube clips and full episodes on YouTube. So don't forget about that. We're always trying to make new content for you guys in the best way possible, and that is why we ask you, the fans, to let us know better ways and the best ways to get you guys the content you all deserve. That is what Facts Not Included is all about. It is a fun, interesting experiment that we've been doing the last couple of years, and we're just having a lot of fun doing it. So without further ado, on to the show. Hey, welcome to the show. My name is Peter, and I am your host today, as usual. Today's episode, as you heard, is going to be all about my little Kansas City and St. Louis road trip that I did with my dad just a few days ago. And this is another car episode, so if you do hear me driving around, you do hear me moving. It's because the car's on, and it's because the car's moving around. So don't be alarmed. Don't freak out. I am going to try to find a spot where I could just park, and we can talk. But anyway, so yeah, we just went on a 7-night, 8-day road trip to Kansas City and St. Louis. The whole idea was because we do this every single year. It seems we go some place in the last, I want to say the last 10 years or so. It's, probably the last 7 or 6 years, actually. We've been doing different cities around the country. But we used to do mainly a road trip down to Washington, D.C., and a part of Maryland where our good friends live. And so that's what we used to do a lot. And then at some point, we started doing other cities across the country, mainly to go see baseball games, to be frank. Baseball is our favorite sport, and there's beautiful ballparks around the country, and we want to go see them all, or at least as many as we can. And so that was our idea. That was our plan. Um, and so that's what we do. So this year's idea sprang about sometime in November of 2017 or something like that, or a little further in, maybe February or something like that. But the idea came about that we wanted to visit Toronto. We wanted to visit Detroit, and then, because they're not too far from each other, actually. So we thought of doing that. But it turns out it didn't work out. The teams weren't going to be around each other at the time we wanted to go. We also figured that the hotel prices weren't going to work out for us. So we were like, all right, let's try Boston. Boston, same issue. Boston didn't work out either. Because Boston, at that point, you're only just going to see Fenway and the wonderful city of Boston, but we wanted to do a couple of stadiums. We had never done that before. We usually only do one stadium, and that is it. And so we felt that this was going to be the year that we see multiple ballparks at one shot. And so I was like, let's do an area in which we could do that. But we already did D.C., we already did Baltimore, so that's out of the equation. Pennsylvania is so massive, but we had already done Philly, and we had already done Pittsburgh. We thought of Cincinnati and Cleveland. Now, I looked into that, and no offense to the city of Cleveland, a pretty boring city, it seems like. I mean, granted, I still haven't visited, but, and also it didn't work out again. with the hotels and the teams being there at the time. And then it worked out with, of course, St. Louis and Kansas City. And the reason I also wanted to go there was because, I mean, come on, you hear about the food in these two towns, in these two cities, and nothing but great barbecue and just wholesome Americana, as they say, right? Kansas City is technically in the heartland, as they call it, of the United States. So we said, why not? Let's do it. And so many months later, months pass. We are in August, and we're about to head out to Kansas City. The whole idea is now, well, it's an 18-hour drive. What is it? What is it that we're gonna do when it comes to resting and stopping? Are we gonna just go straight? I've never driven that long. The most I've done is probably 3 hours. And so we decided to pick a hotel spot, probably roughly about halfway through. So we'll do, but it was a little longer than that. It turned out to be like 11 hours. We went to Indianapolis, the great city of Indianapolis. We stood in like a very posh, ooh, dropped my phone there, a very posh suburb of Indianapolis. So it was an interesting experience as well there. Being that when you think of Indianapolis, you don't think of super posh or super, extravagant and stuff. But for some reason, this suburb that we stayed in Indianapolis was that exactly. And so it was fun. It was cool. It was an interesting experience. I didn't realize how different the suburbs of Indianapolis were as compared to the city, so I was taken aback a bit. Like, for instance, we were there, and there was like a Rolex store. Every freaking restaurant in the area was a five-star restaurant, so it weirded me out of it. Anyway, we stopped in Indianapolis. It was a lot of fun. It was really cool. We stayed there for a night, basically like 12 hours. We were there. Got there about 7, and wound up leaving about another 7 in the morning. On our way to Kansas City, this is where, like, even before we got to Indianapolis and then after we left, it's very boring ride. Let's be honest. Corn as far as the eye can see, really nothing extravagant in relation to billboards and stuff. So it was whatever. It's not like driving down I-95 and getting to see that Mexican themed place, like off the border or on the border, whatever it's called. And so we decided that, he would drive, I think it was like he would drive the whole length from, most of the length from Indianapolis to Kansas City. And then once you got to Kansas City, I think I took over, or at least once you got relatively close to Kansas City, I took over. Or something like that happened, I can't remember. So anyway, we get to Kansas City, we check in, we realize that we are in the part of Kansas City that is in Kansas, not so much Kansas City, Missouri, the very, very famous Kansas City. We're in Kansas City, Kansas, which is slightly different in regards to the feel and the look, but then at the same time, you don't even know that you're going back and forth. That we noticed a lot of people seem to either live in the Kansas part and work in the Missouri part, or vice versa. There's a road called the State Line Road or something like that. And so that is the only time you're going back and forth. If that was not there, there's no clear indication that you're hopping from Missouri to Kansas and Kansas to Missouri. You literally have no idea. Also, actually, the other place you'll know is obviously on the highway. The highway tells you. But other than that, like there's no clear markers of, oh, I'm a resident of Missouri, I'm a resident of Kansas. It's not as clear as you would like to think. I'm sure legally on like forms and stuff like that it is. But when it comes to looking at it on a blind eye, obviously there's not going to be a border, between states like that, and a wall or whatever. But, I am a little bit more surprised that there's no clear distinction. Also, I only say that because I live in New York City, and the clear distinction between New York City and anything Jersey related is giant, massive body of water. And so there's that. Like, we got that when we went to St. Louis. Like, the Mississippi divides St. Louis, Missouri from the rest of the state that is across, which is Illinois. So, like, I get that. I'm so used to that. But to be on a flat, land fully surrounded by land, an area fully surrounded by land, and not to see clear distinctions of border, is slightly unusual for someone that lives in New York City. But that, it's cool, being that there isn't that distinction. I prefer no distinction because it literally is just a state line. And I'm rambling too much about a state line for no reason. I don't know why I'm doing this. But yeah. So anyway, we got to Kansas City. We checked in. We enjoy ourselves for that night. Where'd we go? Oh, where'd we go? I think we had checked in to the hotel, and then later. Oh yes, we went to. Okay, so my dad's a big aficionado. I say that jokingly, but a big aficionado of anything Food Network related. He loves the Food Network. He loves the Cooking Channel. Though he does none of that at home. It's just something he likes to watch. He just likes food, right? And so we decided that we would visit some of the places that were on that network's some of the shows. And so one of the places that we stopped at was this place. Oh my, I totally forgot the name for like half a second. Oh, Slappy's. Slappy's Barbecue in Kansas City. We saw it on one of the shows. They had featured it, and the big thing that they were talking about on Slappy's, on the show about Slappies, was that one, it's an acronym apparently, or it used to be an acronym, and then they were like, let's just leave it the way it is because it's a cool name. It, they were talking about like the ribs at Slappies. They were talking about the turkey and everything. Basically, everything from this place was highly regarded, right? But the big thing for me that was mentioned in the episode was none of the meats. None of the meats. That wasn't amazing to me, even though when I got to eat it, I felt otherwise. But there was this thing that they had over there, which I've never seen. I like potatoes. I like baked potatoes. I like, depends, but I like casseroles. I mean, I like mac and cheese. So technically, I like casserole, right? This thing was like a baked potato casserole. And if I was to describe it to you, I just did. It's literally baked potato, minus the skin part. Everything that these people put into baked potatoes, like peppers and onions and stuff like that, whatever they do down there, and sour cream, whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but they put all this stuff in it, and they basically just mash it together, make it into a casserole. It is the most delicious thing my mouth has touched in a long time, and I eat a lot of weird things and cool things. This thing was just so satisfying because it's salt. It's sweet. I mean, it's everything you could ask for. And I could have eaten pints of that thing. Glad I did not because I would have been really sick. But I could have probably eaten pints and pints and pints of that. So we wound up ordering a lot of food because for some reason we weren't thinking. And so we got like a half pound of like their turkey, a half of like the brisket, and a half of like the pulled pork or whatever. And we just sat down, pig fest, and ate that. Oh, I think you got like beans, baked beans or whatever, craziness, unmitigated disaster after, because we, one, don't eat all the food, as we come to realize, and we should have realized that early on. We don't eat all the food. And then sometime of that night, he has a massive heartburn attack. Like, it's like he was sitting there, and all of a sudden he just gets up and he's like, oh, my dad is just like in pain, excruciating heartburn. And I'm just sitting there going like, I don't feel this, right? And so I had to like run out, drive and get him some like Tums and stuff. Popped. He thought he was having a heart attack, which is something he's had before, so it was kind of like scary, but at the same time I knew it wasn't, so I was just like, whatever. Let's got him the Tums. He was fine. Everything was a-okay. Next day, we decided, because another main reason of going to Kansas City was because Kansas City has a lot of beautiful museums. I know it's not a town you probably would have thought that would have had those things, but Kansas City has beautiful places to go see and visit other than just seeing Kauffman Stadium. And so we wound up going to the National World War I Museum, designated by Congress as the National World War I Museum, We wound up also going to the Negro League Baseball Museum and the Jazz Museum, which is in the same building. And so we wound up spending most of our Friday, if not all of that Friday, morning and early afternoon, going to these three places. And I will say, shout out to the people that run the National World War One Museum. It is one of the most beautiful and most well kept places I've ever been to. I love museums. If you know anything about me, museums are my one stop one stop I must do in any city I visit, regardless of how long I'm there. I must visit at least one museum, and it could be anything. It could be a contemporary art museum. It could be a modern art museum. It could be a military war museum, whatever it may be. I must visit at least one museum in every single city I've ever visited, especially if the city is a large city that supplies all these things. And so the National World War One Museum is probably state of the art, top notch, amazing. It is beautiful. Highly recommend anyone that is in the Midwest region that hasn't ever gone there to that museum, go. If you are ever visiting that area of the country or coming from any part of the world, please go visit the National World War One Museum. I heard a lot of people talking that they had recently had visited the World War II Museum, which is in Louisiana, in New Orleans. And then they were like, we heard a lot about the World War One Museum in Kansas City, and we had to check it out. And so I heard I heard at least 4 people talk about that basic scenario of them. Their next stop was either New Orleans or their next stop was Kansas City. And so I highly recommend the World War One Museum in Kansas City. The Negro League Baseball Museum is very, very, very small, and so is the Jazz Museum. But it is well worth the $15 of admission per person to see these museums. So if you do $10 to see one, or $15 to see both, and that's how it worked. Then actually go back to the World War One Museum. I think it's $16 per person. If you are a veteran, active, or retired military, you get it for $14. Or if you are a teacher or something like that, you get it for like $5 off. It's a weird system they have there, but it's interesting. Anyway, the Negro League Baseball Museum and the Jazz Museum. Oh my God. Though they're very small and though they are very, you know, not as packed with I'm sorry, they are packed with information. They're small and constrained, but they are packed with info and packed with exciting, fun history that you would probably never know about unless you step foot into these rooms. And being that the great and wonderful Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, has just recently passed away, the fact that I got to see this section that they have dedicated to her, they've had dedicated to her, I'm sure, since the inception of the museum. But the fact that I got to see it within days of her passing is extremely powerful to me. Extremely powerful. Because getting to see the pictures and the life that she lived and the music that she played and created made me feel a certain way, especially now looking back at it just a few days ago. And though knowing that she is now gone, it's extremely powerful. But the Jazz Museum is really cool because everywhere you walk around, depending on the artist that you're focusing on, because they have sections broken up by the artist. Like they have a section on Louis Armstrong, Aretha Franklin, Billy Gillistree, stuff like that. People like that. Duke Ellington. They have their music playing. You click the buttons and you get to hear their music. It's pretty dope and pretty nice. And so the Negro League Baseball Museum is in the same building. You walk down the hall and boom, you're right there. It is tiny, but again, it is packed with history. It is packed with the beautifulness that is that was the people that played in that league. A league that should have never existed because they should have always obviously been playing in the major leagues with the whites. But history is disgusting. And it existed, and that is a sad moment on this country's history. But the fact that it did exist, and the fact that we got the players that we got from that, is a true testament to, a human will, because some people could have just been like, well, then why play baseball to begin with if we're never going to play in the big leagues? But these people were like, no, fuck that. We're going to make our own league, and we're going to be better than the majors. And it turns out, they were for a while, They had the best players, Satchel Paige, Cool Papa Bell, some of the greatest baseball players in the history of the United States played in the Negro Leagues. And so I got to see that history. I've always wanted to see it. I always wanted to see this museum up close and personal, and it was amazing. And probably the most powerful thing I've seen this week is going into the Negro League Museum and seeing the mound, seeing first base, seeing the field with the statues of the icons that played that position. Of course, Satchel Paige being the picture, and so on and so forth. Jackie Robinson, everybody that was on the field made an impact on the Negro Leagues, and so they made an impact on this country. And it was pretty amazing, pretty fascinating to see that, and it was great. So after that, we wound up going to the amazing and wonderful. I think this was the best place I've ever been to, barbecue wise. Down the block, about 4 blocks, there's a place called Arthur Bryant's. And now I heard about Arthur Bryant's from a podcaster named, of course, you guys know him. He's a great comedian, Greg Proops. He talked about Arthur Bryant's because he does the panel when they do the Negro League inductions. He's the moderator, and the food is catered by Arthur Bryant's. And so I heard everything I needed to know about Arthur Bryant's from Greg, from Mr. Proops, and it sold me. And so I said, we have to go to Arthur Bryant's, right? Well, Arthur Bryant's, what to say? Because when you go in, first of all, I didn't think we were going to eat because it was packed. It was packed. So that one made me go, all right, this is good news. This is good news. It's packed. That must mean people like this place, right? The other thing was, it was smelly, and I mean that in a good way. It smelled beautiful. If you like the smell of barbecue, you love the smell of Arthur Bryant's. The other thing that sold me is when I went on the board, as I got closer to the counter, the amount of food they give you is unheard of. It is pretty nasty, the amount of food they give you. Let's say you get like a sandwich. It costs you like $8, right? Well, they're going to charge you $8 for a sandwich that if you got that sandwich here in New York City, that sandwich is probably going to cost you about $20, $25, depending, right? So they give you, if you guys are any way familiar from the deli Cats in New York City, they give you like a mound of pastrami when you order a sandwich, and the sandwich costs you $20 or $25, whatever it is. You get that same sandwich, but better meat because it's going to be brisket. It's going to be whatever, You get that same sandwich out over there, $7.95, $8.95. Blew my freaking mind, all right? But I didn't go to Arthur Bryant's for a sandwich. I didn't want to go to Bryant's for a sandwich. I wanted to go to Bryant's because I heard a lot about their ribs. Their ribs are apparently the best in Kansas City. Or at least one of the best. And so I said, all right, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go for the ribs. And that's exactly what I did. And oh my God, I think these people are telling the truth. At least, granted, these were the only ribs I did get at Kansas City. So I don't know if they're telling the truth or not. But I will say that these ribs were unbelievable. There needed to be no sauce. It was whatever the rub that they had was the rub you needed. And they sell it too. Like if you want to use it at home. They're like, you want to use our recipe? Feel free. We don't give a crap. We want you to enjoy this at home. And so that's exactly what they do. They also sell the barbecue sauce, which, oh my God. If I was to say that life changes when you eat a barbecue sauce, if I said that before recording this episode and before eating those ribs, I would slap myself because that just doesn't make any sense. But Arthur Bryant's, they have 3 sauces. The original, I think it's called sweet and spicy or something royal, whatever. I don't know. There's 3 sauces. One of them's not that good. but the other two, the original and the one that I wound up buying, which I think is called Hot and Spicy, if I'm not mistaken. It's like a silver, it's more of a silver label on it. Oh my goodness. I am going to make a slab of ribs, and I'm just going to whack this on the ribs, and I'm just going to go to town. I could probably eat this sauce with chicken, with anything, to be honest. Like, it will work. It is the most delicious barbecue sauce I've ever eaten. I'm glad I bought it at a gift shop not too far from the restaurant, um, called the Best of Kansas City. It's right where the Hallmark um, gift cards headquarters is at. It's really cool. But anyway, oh, best ribs I've ever had. And it was pretty amazing. Problem is, just like my dad the night before, I wound up getting heartburn from these people. God damn it. But it was only because I had eaten the ribs so fast and did not care that I succumbed to the world of heartburn really quickly. And so that's what happened to me. So who cares? Anyway, later that night we wound up that was Friday, right? Yeah. So what did we do for the rest of the day? I can't even remember. I think we wound up going to this place called Andy's Frozen Custard. It's like a franchise out there. They do a lot of frozen custards. They have a lot of locations in a couple of states. But apparently they are amazing, and I also went there, and it was pretty dope. It was some of the best ice cream, frozen custard, whatever that I've ever had. It reminds me a lot of like those local. If you ever go to like Pennsylvania, and you ever see like those drive-through ice cream places. I see them in PA, but with like a drive-through ice cream place, you get like a hamburger, and but it's not. It's obviously not a McDonald's, but it's definitely gives you the feel that you're stepping back into the 1940s, 1950s. Those are the best places to get ice cream from, hands down, no joke. Best places, and this is a place that's like that. Though it's a franchise, though it seems to be a large enough company. They treat, it seems, because we wound up going to two locations. They treat each location as if it's its own, and they treat each location as if it's there's only one, and I respect that. I like that. Each place feels fresh. Each place feels welcoming, and they love to satisfy their customers, and I couldn't agree more with a business model like that. So Saturday rolled around, and what did we do Saturday besides at night we went to the baseball game? But Saturday, hmm, I can't. Oh, right. Oh my God, greatest. Okay, I wouldn't say greatest, but rivals. Some of the best museums I've ever been to, and I've been to some good ones. So obviously, I'm here in New York, and so I go to all the museums here, the MoMA and stuff like that, Brooklyn Museum, the Moving Images Museum and stuff like that. I've been to Chicago. I've been to Washington, D.C. This museum, the Nelson Atkins Museum, the art museum, rivals all of those museums. It belongs with these museums. It is a beautiful place. First of all, you don't even need to go inside to understand the scope of beautifulness that this museum has. But then you go inside, and then you just go, boop, woo, unbelievable amounts of art that are in here. You have period, you have the early, um, you have American colonial period, you have a lot of Asian art from BC times, post BC, the modern era, the AD times. A lot of art, a lot of jewelry, a lot of paintings from Europe in the 16 and 1700s. A lot of Baroque art and stuff like that. A lot of art and a lot of sculptures and just a lot of everything that you just want. Egyptian stuff, Greek, everything you can think of that will be under one roof. I kind of put it in regards to a very minimalistic. Okay, I wouldn't say minimalistic. I would say a very concise Met. So, have you ever been to the Metropolitan Museum of Modern Art here in Manhattan? Uh, it's huge. You can't do that museum in one day. You definitely need at least 3 days to do that whole museum. And so, this museum, the Nelson Atkins Museum, is a museum you could do within a day, day and a half. And so, yeah, this is basically the best way to describe it, even though it holds itself to its own. Like, it doesn't need to be compared to any other museum. But the best, comparison, if you want me to give one, would be that. And so, oh my God, it's just a beautiful place. So we wound up going there. After that, we wound up forgot where we got food at that day. But anyway, we wound up going to the baseball stadium, Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City. Kansas City was playing the Cardinals, which is funny because we wound up going to the Cardinals Stadium just 2 days later to see the Cardinals play. But the Kansas City Royals were playing the Cardinals at Kauffman. Kauffman's a beautiful stadium. Not my favorite stadium in the country. It didn't hit all the marks for me there, but it is a fun stadium to go to. I will say the food there looks good. The food there looks like fun. The drinks were fun and looked good too. The atmosphere is great. The fans are fantastic. They love their sports in Kansas City and St. Louis. So to see both of those cities play each other was pretty fun. Um, so yeah, Kauffman was great. Kauffman was fun and exciting. I do recommend people going to that stadium, but at the same time, um, you don't have to. Like it's, I don't know. I enjoyed myself there, but it wasn't like an awe-inspiring moment, like other stadiums I've been to. So the next day would be Sunday. Sunday we spent drop my phone. Sunday we spent driving to St. Louis, which is only less than 4 hours away. So we wound up going to St. Louis. We get to St. Louis, and what a change in scenery. What a change in atmosphere. What a change in just everything. And what I mean by that is Kansas City. The people of Kansas City, Missouri, thank you. Because your city is beautiful. Let's just say that right now. I love your city. I want to visit your city more often. I don't know if I would move there. I'll think about it. But I just enjoyed and loved your city. Now, St. Louis. I am from New York City. So we are aware of the dangers of certain things in a downtown city. But I've been to Chicago too for days. I've never felt so un how to put this. I've never felt so uncomfortable within the first 30 minutes in a city than I did in St. Louis. It was weird because I wanted to enjoy downtown, but I didn't know how dangerous downtown was and how freaking weird it is. So the first 30 minutes we're there, we're in a convenience store. A guy whoops out his penis, starts harassing a woman. Literally, no more than 30 minutes in this city. That's happening. So we're all freaked out. It's all happening in the back of the store. The freaking owner of the store realizes that this is happening and has to deal with something. Guy leaves. It's freaking weird. Leave the store. SWAT teams, literally, no, I'm not joking. SWAT teams are just piling through the town, just going through the streets, trying to get something or someone they're looking for. This all happens within 30 minutes while I'm in the city. Within the span of 5 minutes of each other. It was nuts. It was something that was very weird. No one is out in the streets at night, walking the streets. Very rare if you see anyone walking the street at night. And everyone in the hotel stayed in the hotel to eat at the hotel or took a cab or an Uber to go somewhere else. No one was walking the streets. And there's things near the hotel we stood at. There were places to go to walk to. But no one was doing it at night. It was very interesting. It was a very interesting feel and a very interesting vibe. I did enjoy my time in St. Louis, though, when I got into the suburbs and I got into what people would consider. I actually felt more comfortable in areas closer to, like, I'm sure you guys have heard of Ferguson, Missouri. We were very close to Ferguson because downtown's very close to Ferguson. We went around there. We went around. I forget the other parts. We're not too far from the zoo is at and stuff like that. Over there, I felt more comfortable there, and I was told by the media to be scared about those parts. Nope, not at all. People over there were comforting and nice. I don't know. It was interesting. It was interesting. And so the next day we went to the St. Louis Zoo. Now, hands down, second best zoo I've ever been to. Hands down. Hands down. Second best zoo I've ever been to. And I've been to, the Bronx Zoo and stuff, and all the zoos here, New York City, and I still haven't gone to the one in D.C. So, and as many times as I've gone to D.C., still haven't gone to that zoo. But St. Louis Zoo is hands down amazing. What a great experience! It's free, so if you get driven there by a friend, he's not going to charge you, so your whole day's free. But if you want to park there, you got $15, not too bad. Um, but yeah, I mean, St. Louis Zoo is fantastic. But the icing on the cake, because by far, and I'm a Yankee fan. I've been to Citi Field. I've been to uh, PNC in Pittsburgh and stuff like that. So like I said, I've gone to millions and millions and millions. Just kidding. I've been to quite a number of baseball parks. Busch Stadium is number 2 on my list. Number 1 is PNC in Pittsburgh. No, nothing's going to top that for a while, I don't think. But number 2 is Busch Stadium in St. Louis. You guys know how to pull a stadium together and pull a party, man. The fans in St. Louis were extraordinary. I was wearing my Washington Nationals t-shirt because they were playing the Nats. I was wearing a Nationals t-shirt, and they embraced me. It was weird. They embraced me. Though they knew the game was important, and the game was a big game for the wild card standings and stuff like that, they embraced me. It was weird. It was very bizarre. And anytime the Cardinals did something good, the guys around us would be like, "Hey, you admit that you like that. You might be a Nats fan, but you admit that you like that." I never told them I was a Yankee fan, only because I was incognito. Uh, but man, I've never felt so in love with the town, a town's fans before. Um, it was cool. It was amazing. It reminded me of the time I was in Pittsburgh. It reminded me because you go to the Yankee Stadium and stuff, you don't get that feel. The feel of the stadium wasn't made for the fans at Yankee Stadium. The stadium was made for the corporate elite at Yankee Stadium. You understand that? There's a big difference. Busch Stadium was made for the fans. Kauffman was made for the fans. PNC was made for the fans. And so you get that feeling when you go to those stadiums. You don't get that feeling so much when you hit Yankee Stadium. And hey, you know, I can't do nothing about that. I don't run the Yankees. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say about that. But I will say that there's a big difference you get when you go to these stadiums. And it was an amazing experience. And it was great. And so that was the last thing we did in St. Louis. The next day, we got on the road and we headed to New York. We wound up stopping in Pennsylvania in a town called Belle Vernon, just outside of Pittsburgh. From what I understand on the map, if you know anything about Pennsylvania, so it's Pittsburgh. There's like a town called California, Pennsylvania, and so we're just outside of that in that town called Belle Vernon. And then the worst thing could have happened. Nothing happens to us on the roads over there, but once we are 40 minutes from home in New Jersey, literally 5 miles from the exit in which we needed to get off at, a guy is driving a commercial vehicle, a GMC truck, big truck, and pop goes his tire, whacks us right in the face. And our car, which I thought would have gone flying into the rails, his tire goes underneath the carriage. And luckily my dad was driving, because I think if I was driving, something worse would have happened. My dad puts the car in, handles it really nicely, and we pull over, and there's a giant messed up gash in the hood and scratches everywhere, and it was a devastating experience. But it goes to show you that, it's true. Most of the accidents you get into do occur near your home, right? And so that's exactly what happened. But we're fine. It was fine. The cars seems to be all right. Some damage in the front, but it was weird because it was such a great week that we had, and then it gets capped off by this horrible experience on the highway at the end. But it did not ruin our spirits. We did wind up enjoying ourselves for the whole week, and it was great. And I really, really I hope you guys enjoyed my talking about this, because I just rambled for the last 45 minutes, but it's fun. I probably did leave out a lot of interesting things that we did, but I just wanted to give you a quick little synopsis of what my week was like. It was fun. I'm planning on trying to go away this fall with my girlfriend. See how that works out. But we're hoping to go away somewhere, and yeah. So, but I appreciate you guys checking out this episode of Facts Not Included, our little Kansas City, St. Louis, Midwest update that we had have for you guys. It was a fun time. It was a fun time bonding with my dad. Things that sometimes when we're with each other here in New York, we don't do that, but out there we were able to talk more. When you're in a hotel room for so long, you kind of have no choice to do that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I've been Peter Cabranes, and I've been your host this week for Facts Not Included. And again, don't forget to let everybody know about the podcast, and let everybody know what you think, and share the episodes. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. Bye bye.